ahead, sorry.
Can you just say a few things about state and local, because that hits more immediately home
Okay.
to a lot of us?
Yeah, it's really important, because remember, the federal government problem has to be fixed. When it gets fixed, keep in mind water flows downhill. So it's going to affect states and cities and towns. You're all going to receive less money. In our state, half. Your state, probably close to half from the federal government. And we have, so that's another wave that's going to hit our states, and we're not prepared for it. But we're already dealing with the current problem. And that current problem is we have severe unfunded pension and OPEB amounts. Now, I always refer to pension as seriously underfunded. OPEB is essentially unfunded. So it's like most of them put no money aside for that. And that doesn't just go up by a small percentage. That jumps up dramatically every year, the cost of health care. So for pensions, all of you need to pay attention to the cities and towns you live in your state. You should be asking for how much they're paying. I'll give you a few questions you should always ask. How much of your annual required contribution are you paying? Because that's how they break the system a lot of times. The actuary tells me you have to pay $30 million a year. They're going to show a deficit for this year. It's election year. I'm going to show a deficit this year of $2 million. What do? I don't fund 100% of the annual required contribution. I go $2 million short. I finish the year. I go $3 million short. I finish the year with a surplus of $1 million. Vote for me again. See, I finished another year, 20 years in a row with the surplus. Well, really, you didn't. You didn't pay all your bills. That's sort of like us taking our mortgage, 12 statements, and taking one of them, stick them in the drawer and don't pay it, and say we finished on budget with everything we did. So ask them, what percentage of the ARC are you paying? Ask them, what is the assumed rate of return you have on your pension? I guarantee you all know you have a pension plan. I guarantee when you ask that question, you may fall out of your chair when you find out what the answer is. It is like 8.5%, 8.25%, 8%. And when I tell them the number probably should be more like 4.5%, they're like, no way. But think about what happens. If you reduce that number from 8.5% to 4.5%, the annual required contribution goes up. That's more money they have to pay out of their budget, which means less services they can provide today, which means either layoffs, reduce police, reduce fire, reduce teachers, all those other things. Essentially, you're probably not getting elected again. And that's why I go back again to the leadership deficit. If you challenge your elected officials to say, put our community before yourself, then we can survive this. And then what you need to do as citizens is once you get them to do the right thing, I've seen it so many times in my life, you can't abandon them. If you go there and you get them to do the right thing, as soon as you leave, all the other forces are going to come in and try to bounce them out in the election and just torture them for what they did. Because you're there when you want something, and after you get what you want, you go back to work, put your head down, and do whatever you're doing. And that elected official is sitting there all by themselves with all the forces against them shooting arrows at them. You should be there then too. Because what happens is, that elected official, we all want to believe everyone's going to do the right thing, but if I got just completely blasted everywhere I went, then you got to be pretty strong to stand up to that every single time. I spent 15 years testifying and watching 15 people come up after me and just rip my head off every single time. But you know, it's been 15 years, and now you should watch them testify, because they stand up and say, if you just listened to Mr. Almonte 10 years ago, we wouldn't be in the position we're in today. So even they get it now. But back then, I was afraid that, I told my wife, if I got in an accident, drag me over the line to the next town. I don't want to get picked up by this police department or this fire department. And so, but now they're happy to come and pick me up, because they're saying, you were never malicious. And that's my point to all of you. You have to be an engaged citizen. You have to be an informed citizen, and you need to challenge your government to do the right thing. Because I think if they see you show up in force, they'll start to do the right thing. The problem is, and I'm not going to embarrass anybody, but you just think to yourself, how many times have you gone to a council meeting and spoken out? Because for the most part, we don't do that. We stay home. I'd rather have dinner with my family. I'd rather do this thing than run these hearings every night, go to the baseball game instead of going to that. But sometimes you have to play this role. We live in America. We have a civic responsibility. And I wish they taught civics again in school to teach people we have a personal responsibility to get in our government and hold them more accountable. Because when you start to look, I guarantee you, you're going to see a real sad picture in your cities and towns in your state. Seriously underfunded in pension, probably unfunded in OPEB, and no clue at how much it costs to add an additional employee when you move forward. You have that expertise. You should challenge them. Consider running for office, but if you don't want to do that, go to the meetings and challenge them. Not attack them, challenge them in a professional manner so that you become an influence of positive change, is my advice. The federal government deficit is one part. State and local government will hurt them. And that's why what you're doing and what Lisa's doing here is very important to educate you, educate your employees, educate clients, and we have to move this thing forward. This is real, and we have the skill set to fix it. It's a great country. I want to keep it great. So is that enough? I know it's not a lot of time for state and local government. So thank you.